Welcome to another NFL Division preview video here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. Ian Cameron with you. And in this video, we are going to talk about the AFC South. And at one time, this was a division nobody wanted any part of talking about. And now it is a division where it's all of a sudden a division of intrigue. And it's a division featuring one of the up-and-coming teams in the NFL and the team that we are going to begin talking about here in our AFC South preview. The Houston Texans, what a revival of this franchise it was last year. What a season they had. What a rookie year for quarterback C.J. Stroud, who was absolutely phenomenal last season, leading the Texans to a turnaround 10-7 season. DeMeco Ryans showing already what a great young coach he already is, and probably only going to get better. It is definitely a Houston team that, look, they decided C.J. Stroud's our quarterback when they had other options. And right now it's looking like they made the right call. 4,000 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Houston gets to the AFC divisional playoff. Offensive rookie of the year for Stroud. Amazing season that he put together. Now, you do worry about sophomore slump, sophomore jinx, whatever you want to call it. And could that creep into play here for C.J. Stroud? Maybe. But boy, he is definitely not in a position where he is set up to fail. Because when you look around this Houston team, the offensive line for them, they get Blake Fisher in the draft. It looks like as far as the rest of the offensive line, it looks pretty solid with Juice Scruggs, Shaq Mason. It'll be interesting to see how they fare. And even if that offensive line, which is good, I don't know if it's a great offensive line and Laramie Tunsil still got a lot in the tank at the left tackle spot, even though he's been around the block with Peterson, Mason, Howard, Kenyon Green. I think it's still going to be a good offensive line, maybe not as good as the elites, but you don't have to be. You just give C.J. Stroud a little bit of time, and plus he's incredibly athletic and mobile. He'll be able to make plays. Very interesting, too. New starting running back here with Joe Mixon brought in for the Houston Texans. And, kind of down time last year for him in Cincinnati, but again, product of Joe Burrow getting injured, product of an offensive line that had their share of issues. It wouldn't surprise me to see Joe Mixon kind of get back on the beam again and have himself a pretty good season here for the Houston Texans this year. The receiving core, look, it's clearly a strength. I mean, we're not splitting the atom figuring that out. When your top 3 receivers on paper are Stephon Diggs, who you get from Buffalo, Nico Collins, who was outstanding last year, Tank Dell, who was also outstanding last year before he got injured. You've definitely got more than enough weapons at receiver. So they're outstanding on offense. The defense last year for the Houston Texans, early in the season, they had some issues, but this was a defense that as the season went on, it definitely got better and better as it went. And when you look at their defense, Will Anderson proved to be just as great a draft pick as C.J. Stroud proved to be last year. He was phenomenal. He absolutely was terrific throughout the season. Defensive Rookie of the Year went his way. Jonathan Greenard was outstanding, getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They lose him, but they get Danielle Hunter to replace him from the Minnesota Vikings. He's always been one of the good, solid pass rushers. He's a little bit older, but he's still, I think, a pretty good above-average pass rusher, so it's not going to be much of a decline, if any. Very capable replacing Greenard. You look at the defensive tackle spot, a little change there, but they have Folaronsu Fatukasi, Mario Edwards Jr. That's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Rankins and Malik Collins, 2 guys that they had last year, are gone. Danico Autry as well comes in here for this team. We'll see, again, how he's able to fare in this one. But again, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, I mean, you certainly got yourself just an incredible pass rush duo right there. Don't forget about Derek Barnett either, who's also very capable. You look at the linebacker spot for the Houston Texans. Azeez Al-Shahir, Jake Hansen, solid duo. Not great, solid is exactly what they're sturdy. Is there better linebacker duos? Yes, but this is not a liability to the team at that position. Derek Stingley Jr. already showed you at a very young age just what a talented young corner he is. Jeff Okudah, still concerns. He never really did pan out at Detroit. You'd like to see him get a little bit better. Jimmy Ward leading them at the safety spot. So I think when all things are considered, the secondary's in pretty good shape as long as Stingley is back there leading it, no question. But one thing that's very interesting to watch for, and a name you maybe want to keep an eye on here as far as the secondary, are the second and third round picks this year, Kalen Bullock and Kamari Lassiter. And Lassiter in particular has the potential to be really strong for the Houston Texans in the secondary and a real great addition to it. Look, this is going to be a tougher schedule because now you were a good team last year. You're now going to get a tougher schedule this year. You have to play the NFC North, which outside of maybe Minnesota, it's not going to be easy opponents when you're talking Chicago, Green Bay, and Detroit. The AFC East is a very good division outside of New England, so that's not going to be an easy division to play if you're the Houston Texans on your schedule. They also have Ravens and Chiefs outside the division, outside as non-division opponents next year, this season. So it is a tougher schedule. That being said, I was stunned. The Houston Texans win total was as low as 9.5. I thought it was too low. And even with the tougher schedule, even with regression from last year, all we're asking Houston to do is match 10 wins, which is what they got last year. I think they can do it. It was one of the win totals that I really liked this year, was over 9.5 with Houston. Like I said, even factoring in the tougher schedule and even factoring in, potentially, not being able to replicate certain things. This is actually, you could argue, an even better roster, at least as good this year. So over 9.5 wins, I like that quite a bit. And natural progression for Houston, which is very well within their reach, in my opinion. You got a taste of the playoffs. You lost last year in the divisional round. You get a taste of losing, and maybe now you're ready to take that next step. So yes, Houston to win the AFC, Houston to win the Super Bowl for me. With the futures as well. All right, Indianapolis Colts. Now, I'm a little bit higher on this team than some people are. 9-8 they were last year. And yes, 9-8 in spite of the fact that Anthony Richardson was lost early in the season due to injury. The quarterback play was never really all that great last year after he was out of there. Minshew tried his best, but, he was okay. And at times he also struggled. And then after Richardson went down, he also had a bunch of other key injuries that really hurt the Indianapolis Colts throughout the course of the season. The offensive line, is definitely an area that if they stay healthy, they should be really good along the offensive line. We've talked about this for years with Indy. We've always thought they could be a pretty good offensive line. And when you have Bernard Raymond, you've got Quentin Nelson, you've got Ryan Kelly, the veteran center, has been there a long time. It's a pretty good, and the right tackle, Braden Smith, is good. You get them healthy, that's an above-average unit on the offensive line. Receiver, Michael Pittman Jr., Adonai Mitchell from Texas, great potential for him. Alec Pierce, solid. Mo Alley Cox leading them at tight end. Jonathan Taylor, a healthy JT, will help them at the running back spot. And obviously, we'll see if Anthony Richardson can stay on the field. But because the O-line I like, because of the fact that, they've got, I think, when you look at it, a pretty good run game with Taylor. The receivers aren't going to have to be great because you're going to be able to run the football, I think, effectively. Plus, you've got the quarterback runs and run threat from Richardson at that position. This is an offense that's got some capabilities to be pretty solid. And you've got, obviously, Shane Steichen as the head coach. So, as far as game planning and strategizing and scheming offensively, you're in pretty good hands there. On the defensive side of the football, I do have more concerns here, especially when you watched in the preseason. The Colts starting defense really didn't look that good. And look, DeForest Buckner is still a very good interior D lineman, but injuries have mounted. He's older. Kwity Paye, same thing, injuries. And you needed another pass rusher to be consistent. The good news is they addressed it, and they pick in the draft the kid out of UCLA, Laiatu Latu, who has the potential to be an impact pass rusher right away for them. The linebacking core is kind of weak. I'm worried teams might be able to pick apart the Colts over the middle of the field. And then the secondary, look, there's definitely some worries here. What are you going to get from the Juju Brents, Dallas Flowers, Kenny Moore, the second group at the cornerback spot? And I'm not sure I love their safeties, Julian Blackman, Nick Cross. So, you got concerns on that defensive side of the football for the Indianapolis Colts. Linebacking core is a big concern for me. That's probably the weakest group. But even that cornerback spot, it's going to be interesting to see how they go here because Brents and Flowers, there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to play at a very high level. Can they make that jump is going to be the big question for Indy. So with that linebacking core and that secondary being the concerns, maybe teams can throw on the Colts, and that could hinder some of the progress that maybe they can make. They do have a tough beginning to the season. Houston right away in week 1. They've also got the teams like Green Bay, Chicago, Jacksonville on their schedule. They do get a little bit of an easier schedule, though, in the latter part of the season. I'm kind of buying low, though, on Indianapolis. Look, last year, with everything that went down, with all the injuries, with all the mediocrity, 9-8 is what this team ended. And their win total is 8.5 this year, plus 100. So I think they can look. I think if they're a healthier bunch this year, they can absolutely be 9-8, which is what they were last year. And I think they've got a potential to be better than last year. So to me, I think there's a bargain at 8.5 here to go over the total with the Colts, and I think there'll be spots to bet on them throughout the season as well. All right, and also maybe a over team as far as their game totals. I think their offense has potential really to be dynamic and balanced with the run and the pass. I think we might see Steichen mix in a little tempo at times, but there are concerns, especially with the back seven, linebackers, and secondary in that defense. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, this team disappointed last year. It goes without saying. This was a team that people expected to be in the postseason. They flamed out down the stretch. Horrible final loss of the season to Tennessee to keep them out of the playoffs. 8-3, and then things fell apart. Banged up Trevor Lawrence throughout the latter part of the season didn't help. He had multiple issues there, and then, of course, they end up just having an unfortunate end of the season. Lawrence is healthy to begin the year. Yes, Calvin Ridley's gone, and Zay Jones as well, but you bring in Gabe Davis. Brian Thomas is someone that they really like as a first-round rookie receiver that they drafted to go with Christian Kirk. Gabe Davis, Buffalo, didn't have the season I think the Bills wanted, but maybe a change of scenery is good for him, having a new, different quarterback to throw it to him. Evan Ingram at tight end developed a great rapport with Trevor Lawrence, so I don't mind that. And, of course, Travis Etienne at running back should be solid here for this run game. How about the offensive line? Because the offensive line was an issue last year. They did bring in Mitch Morrison, free agency from the Bills, as a veteran center. That should help a little bit, no question. Ezra Cleveland, Brandon Scherf, rounding out this offensive line. They're going to have to get better, and I still have some questions, but I do think there's potential they're a little bit better on the offensive line this year. Cam Robinson's health is utmost importance. It's imperative that Cam Robinson stay healthy. There's no question. Anton Harris, the right tackle, is going to have to play better, but I do upgrade the O-line a bit, which should help this offense. When you look at the defensive side of the football, it was just a bad defense last year. They had all kinds of issues. They were ranked 26th in the NFL in a majority of defensive categories. Bottom feeder as far as against the run and against the pass. The good news is, look, they tried to do some things to upgrade that defense in the offseason, and we'll see if those moves pay off for them. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. Armstead should be Eric Armstead should be someone that you look at for Jacksonville as someone that should be able to, upgrade this team a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how it goes, but upgrading this defense for the Jacksonville Jaguars from the 49ers. I think when you look at the rest of the defense, you look at up front, not only Eric Armstead's presence in the middle of that defensive line from a winning team like San Francisco, but Josh Hines-Allen, as he's called now. Obviously, he's been their predominant pass rusher, but you need to see either Tyler Lacey or the number 1 overall pick, who is just not, I don't want to use the B word yet with this guy. I don't, because it's a little too soon to say bust when it comes to Trayvon Walker. But this is a big year for him. They fucking, spent a number 1 overall pick on this guy to be a dominant, not a good, a dominant NFL pass rusher. And we haven't seen enough of it from Trayvon Walker. So this is a huge year for him as far as I'm concerned with this Jaguars team. The linebacking core with Devin Lloyd and Velocity Aluakun, I don't mind it at all. Cornerbacks, you've got Ronald Darby, Monteric Brown, Tyson Campbell, Darnell Savage, I like Andre Sisco and Savage. I think there are some issues at corner. I'm not in love with any of those corners. I think they got picked on a little bit. They got burned a little bit last year. The good news is the pass rush on paper should be better to help out that secondary, because, look, Darnell Savage, they do bring him in, but at Green Bay, he had some struggles last year at times. And like I said, Ronald Darby, he gets hurt a lot too. Inconsistency with Tyson Campbell. I still think they can get picked on a little bit with the pass defense against good quarterbacks and good receivers. So that's something to watch out for with Jacksonville. The schedule is very tough at the start of the year. They get Miami, on the road to open the year. They also have to play teams like Cleveland, Buffalo, Houston in their own division, Indy, Chicago. But it's not an easy beginning to the season, to the schedule to begin the season for Jacksonville. The win total is currently 8.5. They were 9-8 last year. Again, this is another over lean for me, but I think there's a little bit more value and a little more upside that I have in Indianapolis, believe it or not, than Jacksonville. It's just very difficult for me. The O-line's got questions. I like Lawrence. I like what they've got. The receivers are good enough. ETN's a good running back. Skill position is fine. Pass rush is better, but my goodness, that secondary, man, I'm worried that they could get burned again by good aerial attacks, just like they were last year. So that could be what's some of the grave concerns I have for this Jacksonville team. All right, the Tennessee Titans, final team in this AFC South Division preview. Very, very interesting that for the first time in what feels like forever, we won't be seeing Derrick Henry in the Tennessee Titans backfield. Yes, they have moved on. He's in Baltimore now. They bring in Tony Pollard. They really give him a good contract, too, from Dallas to be the lead running back. I don't think he played as well as the top guy at running back for Dallas that people were hoping for. Tyjae Spears also is a solid backup running back for this team, but obviously not quite what you had with Derrick Henry, to say the least, at the running back spot. Will Levis, we saw struggles early. He got better, though, as the season went on. Levis needs a better offensive line, though. And when you look at Taylor Lewan retiring, they really didn't have an answer for that right away. They hope J.C. Latham is going to be someone that will be the answer. Number 7 pick, an immense talent. They think he could be that great left tackle that they need right away. So we'll see how he fares. They have Peter Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry. He's a solid center. The right side's a little shaky with Brunskill and Dylan Radins, so we'll have to see if those guys can maybe take another step forward. So there are still some questions on the O-line, all about potential and can they realize it. But the fact they have addressed the left tackle spot is solid. Of course, Will Levis has certainly a lot of receivers to work with. Now, he is maybe best days, you could say, starting to slip away from him, but you still have DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, Calvin Ridley now here, too, as one of your relied upon receivers. They bring him in. Tyler Boyd as well from the Cincinnati Bengals. So there's weapons here for Levis. Rely on a run game with Pollard and with Spears. Hopefully the O-line's a little bit better. We'll see if that's the case. The potential for the offense to be really good, but also potential that, there's issues, especially if the O-line doesn't hit. So the offensive line, the receiving core, obviously they tried to bolster those areas. The defense, they had terrible cornerback play last year in the secondary. That had to improve. They bring in L'Jarius Sneed and as well as Chidobe Awuzie. These are veteran cornerbacks. Sneed off an incredible year for Kansas City, and I think they'll miss him a little bit. Awuzie, meanwhile, for the Bengals, he was very good there. So now all of a sudden you bring these two guys in, and it should be right away, a better, much better potentially secondary. Sneed and Awuzie are great additions to go with Roger McCreary. You've got Amani Hooker and Quandre Diggs in the safety spot. So that's definitely a better secondary. Give Tennessee credit. They saw a weakness. They saw a vulnerability, and they did everything they could to address it, and they addressed it in a pretty good manner in the offseason. Jeffrey Simmons manning things, as far as the defensive line. Still a solid player, Sebastian Joseph Day. Do need a little more pass rush, though. When you're talking about the Arden Key, Harold Landry III, Rashad Weaver group, you need more pass rush from these guys. And that's something you're going to have to work for here this year is can they get, more of a push as far as pass rushers on this team. And that's going to have to be something they look at here. Landry obviously had a pretty good year last year with the 10.5 sacks. Can he get more? But Arden Key is going to need to be better for sure as far as production, and Rashad Weaver are going to have to chip in some as well. So they need a little bit more in the pass rush. Linebacking core, still a little suspect there. They did improve the secondary, so there is potential, I think, overall for this to be an improved Tennessee defense. They have a pretty easier schedule early on. There's games against, we'll have to wait and see, or a difficult schedule, I should say, early on. Then it gets a little bit easier later. But to begin the year, you've got Chicago on the road. We think the Bears are a lot better. The Jets, there's going to be Green Bay. You're going to have division games against Miami, or you're going to have out-of-division games, rather, against Miami, and Buffalo and Detroit's on the schedule too for Tennessee. So it's not easy. They've got a lot of tough out of the division games this year. So, you'd like to think maybe there's a potential for better than 6-11 last year. The win total for Tennessee is currently 5.5 with juice, or you could go 6.5. 5.5. It's one of those deals where at 5.5, I'd lean over. 6.5, I'd actually probably lean under. I'm not sure they're better than 6 wins this year. It is a tricky schedule. They did improve at receiver. The O-line's a little better, and the secondary's a lot better. But again, they're playing in a very difficult conference with a schedule that is really, really, really challenging for them, especially early in the season, where that schedule is so tough it could just chew them up and spit them out early on. And that would be the concern for Tennessee, that if the schedule is so hard and they don't make the most of it, are they put behind the 8 ball so badly in the first half of the season that they can't overcome it? So I would lean a little bit to the under, but I am fairly neutral on this win total for Tennessee. I did not bet it either way, over or under. I thought it was well priced at the current number. It could be one of those deals too for the Cincinnati Bengals where early in the season, maybe this could be a bit of a under team for their game totals. I don't know about the Chicago game in week 1, because Chicago could be one of those really, really improved offenses. But after that, you're still going to get a team that's going to rely on running the football. A little more dink and dunk we'll see from Will Levis if he pushes the ball down the field. So monitor that for the totals for the Tennessee Titans. But again, new head coach here too, and Bill Callahan replacing Mike Vrabel. We'll see if there's any sort of massive shift with the offensive philosophy this year for the Tennessee Titans. All right, there's your AFC South Division preview. Best bet here for the AFC South, and we're going to go to the Houston Texans over 9.5. I'm a little bit surprised the win total was that low. -140 is what I had with over 9.5 earlier in the summer. Now, most books have it up to as high as -170, but I still think you can lay it. I think this is minimum, even with the tougher schedule, even with this team and C.J. Stroud in particular maybe having a little bit of regression from last year. Even with all that, I don't see this team being worse than 10 wins this year. Not with the array of talent they have, the defense they have, the coaching staff they have. DeMeco Ryans, I think, has established himself as already a pretty damn good NFL head coach, someone you trust to maintain. We're looking for those coaches, Belichick, Andy Reid. We're looking for, those coaches that it seems year in and year out, Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, keep their teams year in and year out winning a lot of games in the regular season, a level of excellence, a level of consistency that you get from that group. I think there's a chance DeMeco Ryans could be that next coach that has his team just consistently year in and year out churning out double-digit win seasons. So I like Houston here over 9.5. Their win total here for my AFC South Division preview video best bet. There you go. That's a look at the AFC South in this NFL division preview video here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. Hit the like button on the way out, and we hope you're enjoying all of these college football conference and NFL division season preview videos. Thanks for watching this AFC South division preview video right here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.